Welcome to Bad Gear, the show about the world's most hated audio tools. Today we are going to talk about Elektron Analog Four. This 2013 crossover between a high-tech analog poly and a minimalist Groovebox is very similar to the Keys version we had on the show a few months back and turned out to be quite demanding because A, I'm pianistically challenged, and B, I ended up with such an atrocious time to great sounding patches ratio I had to come back for seconds. At the first glance, Analog Four MK1 is ticking all the "that's not your grandparents" analog synth boxes, an enclosure that looks like a first-gen Octatrack AI mock-up gone wrong host, you guessed it, 4 voices. Entangled in a dense web of digital wizardry for sequencing. And controlling what seems to be a random amalgamation of tried and tested synth technologies, PWM, which can paradoxically be applied to non-pulses as well. A 303 square, Juno-esque sub-oscillators, let you dial in simple in-oscillator chords, feedback, nerdy detune options, and the noise generator comes with its own envelope which allows for simple rises and percussions. Hidden in the shallow waters of the Oscillator 2 menu lurk facilities for modulating the amplitude for each of the 2 oscillators with a pulse from its sibling, resulting in ring modulation like FX. And in addition to comparably normal stuff like in-oscillator vibrato and a pitch envelope, there are Prophet-like sync sounds on tap. Nice. Oscillator retrig is essential for tightening up bass patches. The 2 filters are hardwired to a serial configuration and might remind you of an MS-20 if the old Korg had a Moog-style ladder as a low pass and a multimode instead of a high-pass filter. Analog 4 has a reputation of sounding a bit thin, so the peak mode of the second filter comes in handy for musically boosting the bass. After 10 years of Elektron use, I have yet to fully understand the philosophy behind the 2 LFOs. And there are 3 envelopes. One for amplitude and 2 freely routable ones. I spent hours playing around with the 11 envelope curves, but you don't have to. Portamento is hidden in the sound menu, as are settings for oscillator drift and more pronounced filter resonance. 4 of these tones are combined to a kit and sweetened with a nice sounding chorus, delay, and reverb. Accessible wire sends, and just in case you found a tweakable sweet spot you want to preserve for future generations, you can capture it with a performance macro. These kits have a setting for thick unison tones and can be linked to chain and transposable patterns with a maximum length of 64 steps, which combine the "this is not even my final form" rawness of early Elektron with features not found on the officially more pedestrian synth digitakt tones like parameter slides or accent. 2 additional tracks with their own LFOs are dedicated to sequencing FX parameters and inspiring gas even in the Eurorack-only crowd with a limited yet thought-out CV gate and trigger implementation. Technicalities aside, it's still the trademark TR-style step sequencer workflow, peppered with complex per-step automation Microtiming and probability and rule-based note triggering. Leave a comment on how song mode worked out for you, while I personally prefer the compact form factor of the MK1 to that of its more chunky successor. The latter
allegedly
comes with cleaner bass and better overdrive, and just like the analog keys, discrete outputs, which I miss dearly. There's a mod for that though. The tiny onboard keyboard fits my playing skills like a glove. The display is much too small, computer integration via overbridge and transfer is exemplary, and depending on your location and negotiating skills, these things can be found for cheap. Even for a loyal Elektron disciple like me, the seemingly conventional Analog 4 turned out to be quite a challenge. Is it still worth the time and effort? You have already heard the synth in today's intro tune. Let me know in the comments if my skills have evolved since the Analog Keys episode. Let's start this out with a little 2010s techno throwback. Was smooth, pro-sounding and elegantly inoffensive. I had to invest a substantial amount of time to get to that point though, and presets tend to fall apart after a few tweaks. I wanna know if we can dial in a handful of more traditional sounds and use the synth as a mostly non-MIDI centerpiece. That's a mixed bag. The somewhat loose feel of the more conventional tones is certainly not to everyone's taste, and although there are workarounds for that, a single sequencer track for 4 CV and gate outs is a limiting factor. I like what the LFO did to that little noise pedal though. While its synth tones are controversially discussed, Analog 4 excels as a drum machine. Time to combine these drum tones with half a day of sound design work to create something that would qualify as elevator music if and only if the elevator was large enough for full-blown Function 1 PA, a drinking water fountain, 400 people and a time machine, taking us to an era when people were still listening to 128 BPM techno. Verdict: I am in an unhealthy relationship with Analog 4. I appreciate the unpretentious timbre and high-end sequencing, but in spite of my experience with Elektron gear and familiarity with the underlying synth concepts, I still need to put in a lot of time to get results I actually like. What is more, after taking a second look, I can't shake the feeling that, quite similar to other 21st century analogs like Evolver, the deep integration of the synth engines in a digital framework has a negative impact on the overall tone, and if you're used to contemporary Elektron gear, you might be missing some of the more recent features. Given the reasonable current prices and me being completely indoctrinated by the Elektron way, getting an old Analog 4 was a no-brainer, because once you wasted years of your life on learning a single electronic musical instrument, there's no turning back. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Feel free to like, subscribe, become a patron and use one of the links down below to support the channel regardless of what your gas commands you to buy.